I wanted to fill you in on what's on what all is in the Deficit Reduction Act, by the way. This is the Joe Manchin, Chuck Schumer negotiated deal, and that now Kyrsten Sinema is going to have to decide whether she's going to sabotage or not. And there's an interesting story about that I'll get to in just a moment. But here's what's in the deal. $98 billion worth of tax credits to promote the electricity from renewable and non-carbon sources. That's huge. This is the biggest climate bill in the history of the United States. $98 billion to increase production of electricity from renewable sources. $51 billion to give people like you and me tax credits to purchase or improve the efficiency of our homes or buy electric vehicles. $51 billion. $19 billion of incentives and tax credits for companies who are developing biofuels and other renewable fuels for cars and airplanes. $19 billion. $70 billion of new and expanded subsidies to bring down the cost of buying health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It also raises taxes, not on you and me, but on rich people. It imposes a new federal minimum income tax of 15% based on the profits that companies report to investors, not to the IRS. This is going to raise $313 billion from corporations in America that are proclaiming multi-billion-dollar profits to their stockholders, but telling the IRS, oh, sorry, we didn't make any money, we don't have to pay taxes. They won't be able to do that anymore. It closes the so-called carried interest loophole that only benefits a small handful of billionaire hedge fund managers who have been pouring money into Kyrsten Sinema and Republicans' pockets. This will raise $13 billion. It's a small thing, but this is probably the thing that Kyrsten Sinema is going to object to because these same hedge fund managers are giving her money. It also allows the government to negotiate, in some cases, set prescription drug prices for people enrolled in Medicare. They're expecting that will save us $266 billion. The pharmaceutical industry, of course, is running ads right now. I saw one this morning on CNN, I think it was, that said, we've got 20 new Alzheimer's drugs in production and 15 new drugs for childhood diseases. And if you start forcing us to negotiate Medicare prices, we won't be able to develop these drugs. So, you've got to vote no on this. Right. There were some things that Democrats had to give up. The bill would require the Interior Department to hold lease sales for oil and gas explorations in the Gulf of Mexico and the Cook Inlet in Alaska. By the way, I'm getting this from Andrew Ross Sorkin's deal book this morning from the New York Times. It expands tax credits for carbon capture technology, which is, something that I'm very skeptical about. But hey, we may well need this, and it would be nice if they could develop it. And Joe Manchin also secured, Andrew Ross Sorkin writes, also secured a promise from Democratic leaders to vote on a separate measure to speed up the permitting process for energy infrastructure, potentially smoothing the way for projects like a gas pipeline in West Virginia. It doesn't fund that gas pipeline. It doesn't greenlight the gas pipeline. That still has to go through a regulatory and permitting process. It just makes the process go faster. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to get it, but it's a step probably in that direction. And I know a lot of, my colleagues are objecting to this because of that. I'm okay with the compromise. I'll just tell you that right up front. There's so much good stuff in this. Yes, it's going to, if that permitting goes through and if the, blah, a couple of years down the road, there's going to be more carbon. But I think that this is going to balance that out in a really important way. Now, what is Kyrsten Sinema going to do about this? This is the Inflation Reduction Act that I just shared with you. Well, Axios is reporting that big business interests are scrambling to lobby her specifically. They're running a huge ad campaign right now in Arizona. She's back in the state for a few days, and they are just carpet bombing the state with television advertising. This from Axios, quote, the National Association of Manufacturers and the Arizona Chamber have launched a six-figure digital and TV ad buy compressed into 1 week. This is the week that she's going to be home, saturating the Phoenix and Tucson media markets. This is according to Hans Nichols. Quote, taxes won't strengthen, this is what the ads say. Taxes won't strengthen supply chains, promote energy security, or fill vacant jobs, the narrator says. Say no to taxes that would devastate Arizona manufacturers. Right. This is the 15% corporate minimum tax on taxes that you're actually declaring. This terrifies the business community, says Axios. It will cost the biggest 150 U.S. companies some $313 billion over a decade. Now, Sinema has previously expressed support for a corporate minimum tax like this. Where she shuts down is around the carried interest loophole that will only affect, a few dozen New York hedge fund multi-billionaires, but some of the literally wealthiest men in America who have been pouring money into Sinema's campaigns. So, we'll see. Keep an eye on this, but I think now, if you live in Arizona, or even if you don't, frankly, is a good time to reach out to Sinema's office and say, we support the Inflation Reduction Act, you should too. And if you want to call her office, the congressional switchboard for the United States Senate is 202-225-3121, or you can go to sinema.senate.gov, S-I-N-E-M-S-I-N-I-N, oh geez, how do you spell Sinema's name? You can't do it phonetically. It is S-I-N-E-M-A. There you go, S-I-N-E-M-A. .senate.gov is the website, and there you can get her local offices all through the state of Arizona, and reach out to them and say, yes, we support the Reduction Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and you should too.